Hello, fellow music nuts. It's me, Cubby, with another personal spin on this wonderful Wednesday afternoon. It's just started raining, and I've been listening to Scary Monsters Super Creeps by Bowie. As you know, I'm reviewing all of his albums in order, and I've just finished writing this up, so I have notes. Um, so let's begin. Scary Monsters was released in 1980. It sees Bowie move away from the Brian Eno-y experimentation and more into the sort of classic sort of song structure that Bowie would have used in the early 70s, mid 70s as well, but with a more sort of 80s poppy sort of sound rather than an actual sort of rock sound. So it's not so much focus on like guitars and riffs and stuff, and more of a focus on Bowie's vocals and big drums. It's an interesting album. It's not my least favorite, and it's not my favorite. I'll start there. But it is an interesting album. He's clearly kept some of the Brian Eno ideas with some really kind of obscure lyrics. But largely there's no instrumental keyboard soundscapes. He's gone back to a much more sort of guitar orientated sound. And yeah, like most Bowie albums, he sort of writes a song. I mean, I don't know his actual writing process, but you've got the song, and then you've got sort of the Bowieisms, as I'm going to call them, so like the strange sounds, things that he's thought of to make it sound more unique, and that's throughout the album really, except the last sort of four songs. Um, so it opens up with "It's No Game" number one, which is a really weird song to start with because, for one thing, it's got some weird Japanese woman shouting Japanese on it, and then Bowie like literally tearing his vocals apart, screaming. It's a very ear-catching opener, and it certainly, when the first time I put it on, it got me listening. But it is quite obscure, and it wouldn't be to everyone's taste, I wouldn't imagine. But then he goes more normal, like Bowie normal, that is, with Up the Hill Backwards and Scary Monsters. Scary Monsters is a hit, along with Ashes to Ashes and Fashion, so you got three sort of like full-on hits, I would say they are anyway, right in the middle of the album, which is cool. Scary Monsters is kind of a rock song. It is more sort of rocky, but it's got, again, big 80s gated snare drums. Even though this is only 1980, it's still pretty sort of like precedes the 80s. It's pretty cool. Ashes to Ashes has got really overt references to himself disguised as Major Tom in the lyrics, which I think is cool. It's also got kind of cool bass line. It's like a poppy, snappy kind of thing. Beep, 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 type thing. Fashion is a comment on the then new romantic fashion thingy, which is funny because Bowie would then later go on to be like a huge part of that, but that's irrelevant, really, because he wouldn't have known that at the time. It's a pretty good song as well. It's kind of catchy. It goes fashion, turn to the left, fashion, turn to the right, and it's cool. I like it. It's very Bowie-y. And then the second half of the album sort of takes on a more traditional rocky sort of sound and loses quite a lot of the experimentation, but doesn't provide us with a particularly catchy song, but just some more sort of, I'm going to use the word normal, sort of rock band style or pop band related, there you go, music, which is both good, but it kind of feels a little bit out of place in a way, almost like two separate albums, but then I suppose on a vinyl it would be on two halves, so kind of makes sense. Oops. I can describe this album in one word, and that is eccentric. It's very eccentric. But I kind of like that. Oh, my floof's ear got in the way. Let's tuck it in behind. Oh, it's not gonna work. Never mind. There you go. Sorry, playing with my camera. And yeah, I quite like that. I mean, Bowie's pretty eccentric anyway, but this is more eccentric. So onwards with the production of the album. The production is clean. It's powerful. It's very drum orientated. I find that all the songs basically have a solid, continuous drum line backed up by a solid bass line that just repeats throughout the song, and then everything else sort of interweaves within that, which is a perfectly sound way of making a song, really. So yeah, it's a solid album. Dig that cool artwork as well. I think it's quite an overtly introverted album. I think a lot of the songs are actually about himself. I think he's dealing with his slightly dodgy past at the time, and it's kind of his dealing with his issues album is the way I sort of get that feeling with it. So yeah, it's a really good album. It's a really good album. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 drums. So there we go. It's an 8 out of 10 drums album, I think. Not perfect, not his best, but not his worst either. Certainly up there in the top tier end of his discography, as you'd know if you've seen my ranking video. So, thank you for watching. I have been Cubby. This has been a personal spin on scary monsters and super creeps. Thank you. If you like my videos, like and subscribe, and I'll see you later. Thank you.